It's Thursday in Simpsonville, South Carolina, and I know many of you have heard somebody say, well, the scriptures conflict with each other. There's a contradiction between scriptures, and one of the ones that I've heard many times is the scriptures between Ephesians 2:8 and 9 and James chapter 2 and 4. You see, Ephesians 2:8 and 9 has a wonderful doctrinal truth. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and not of yourselves. It is a gift of God, not the result of works. Now, it couldn't be more specific. It says, so that anyone could boast. So it's by grace, through faith, and it's a gift, and it's not the result of works, so that no one will be able to boast. However, James says in chapter 2, verse 14, what use is it, my brethren, if a man says he has faith, but has no works? Can faith save him? Now, that's an interesting question. Can faith save you? Well, the answer obviously is yes in the book of Ephesians. And James is not contradicting that. He's saying faith alone is very often misunderstood. It's not believing there's a God. It's trusting in Jesus by faith. And if you trust in Jesus by faith, there will be a change. The scriptures say we become new creation. You see, they're not in conflict. James is actually clarifying that there's a way to show that you have been saved. Your outward signs will be evident. Not that the outward signs are what saves you. That's through faith. That's a gift. That's not of works, and that's not something we can boast about. But listen to what James says as he continues in verses 17 and 18. He says, even so, faith, if it has no works, is dead. And that's the truth. If there is no works in your life, none whatsoever, your faith is dead. Now, it doesn't mean you have lost your salvation. And verse 18, he goes on and says, but someone may well say, you have faith, and I have works. Show me your faith without the works, and I will show you my faith through my works, or by my works. You see, what he's saying is works are an outward evidence of an inner change. He's not saying the works are what gets you to heaven. There's no place in James where that can really be implied. What he's saying is that faith should automatically bring works. Now, James is a marvelous book. If you haven't read it recently, you can do it easily in one sitting, and you can really meditate on it even in one sitting. The outline of James is pretty simple. He says, if you're really saved and you really have faith, then it will show up in chapter 1 by the way you handle trials and problems. It's a pretty good test. In chapter 2, he says, a test of your faith and your salvation will be in the fact that you've lost your prejudice and favoritism. A third chapter says you'll be showing your faith and the fact that you're saved by the controlling of your tongue. Now, understand, James recognizes you're not going to control it perfectly. He says, man, it's a flaming fire, and you can get a lot of trouble with that tongue. But it's a wonderful test because you're going to try to control that thing. Chapter 4 is a very key chapter, one that just drives me crazy in my redirected years, and that's humility. You see, humility is lost through jealousy, through selfishness, through envy, and being friends with the world. When you're jealous, when you're selfish, and when you're envious, and when you're friends with the world, your humility is gone. And pride is a serious problem in today's world. It's not only a problem for the laity, it's a problem for pastors. It's a problem for staff members. It's a problem for women that are attractive. You see, a pride problem is something that has to be dealt with. It requires self-examination, It requires confession, and it requires a new attitude. A number of years ago, a very dear friend of mine said he was going into coaching where he would coach other pastors. And I told him I thought he was making a terrible mistake. And he said, why? And I said, well, the young pastors think they already know it all, and the old pastors have so many answers that they're really not in that big a need for your help. So between the ones that won't ask for help and the ones who really don't need the help, you're going to wind up with no clients. Now, I think he relatively successfully coached some pastors who were open, who swallowed their pride and got humble, but I don't think it was terribly successful, and I think that I was probably pretty much on mark. Now listen to what James says in chapter 4, verse 6. But he gives greater grace. Therefore, it says, God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Can you take a minute and self-examine yourself and see if you've got pride? Past accomplishments, current accomplishments, some success. Is there a problem with pride in your life? Here's what James says is corrective action. Humble yourselves in the presence of the Lord, and He'll exalt you. I admit, I struggled with pride just like everybody else. In my 35 years of pastoring, I had a pride problem in my 15 to 17 years in the business world. Pride is a terrible, terrible thing, and it's so easy to get caught up in pride. I've tried, and I continue to try, every day to examine my life, look at my motives, examine what I'm doing, and ask myself, do I have a pride problem? And if I do, I try to do exactly what it says here. I try to show my faith through my works, and I try to humble myself before God so that at the right time He'll exalt me. Not for pride's sake, but because it's the right thing to do. It's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.